Tuesday, 21st October 2025, and in this evening's show, we give our thoughts on and reaction to the appointment of former Blackpool legend Ian Evatt as new head coach. He's joined by another ex-Pool hero, Stephen Crainey, as assistant head coach. He'll work alongside Stephen Dobbie, Steve Banks, to complete the continuation of the Steve coaching setup at Bloomfield Road. And I'm John Aspinall, and this is Seasiders podcast. You're getting excited there. Extra time special, there's only one Ian Evatt. Tradition. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Seasiders podcast on a Tuesday evening. We were going to come yesterday. Obviously, there was the potential of the management being announced today, head coach, whatever, and it has been. So, we're coming back to you on a Tuesday. Welcome to everybody in the comments. We've got a good show this evening. We've got Nick, Tim, and the Grice Reaper on the panel. We've got Ryan from Trot Chat Bolton podcast waiting in the wings to give us the dirt and hopefully a few good points on Evo, bringing him on shortly. But let's go around the room very quickly and give our thoughts on the appointment when it was announced. Nick, it was probably not really a secret when it was announced, but good, we've actually got that done 17 days after Stephen Dobbie was given the caretaker role. So a long time overdue, I think.
Yeah, I think we talked on a couple of pods ago, didn't we? I said it'd probably end up being Evatt. Thought it might have been announced yesterday, but was eventually announced this morning. Yeah, not a massive surprise. How do I feel about it? Wasn't jumping for joy, but at the same time, I'm certainly not against it. I think if you look at his record, it stacks up with. It's probably better than nearly all of the other managers who we were realistically, in with a chance of potentially getting. So it's a decent win percentage. He plays good attacking football. He did that at Barrow and at Bolton. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Obviously, once we get a few players back, I think we're going to need to be very patient for the next couple of months at least, I think.
Okay, over to you, Grice Reaper, with your deep Bolton connections. You were a bit, what's the word, hesitant to say the least, to have Ian Evatt in the hot seat. It has happened. So how do you feel about it?
It wasn't my first choice. I can, that obviously that's been well documented. But at the end of the day, I'm sit firmly in the camp that the job is a really hard one. He's not got the best deck of cards to deal with from the start, from an injury perspective, and he's going to need all our backing. So we, as a fan base, have to get behind him. We have no choice. We're in a relegation scrap as we speak. We've got to help him, help the players, and we've got to really just get behind him and give him our full support. We've got to get out of this mess, and we're only going to get out of this mess if we stick together.
Tim, over to you. Athers there, join us on the stream. You know you're onto something good when even Athers has nothing to moan about. Welcome home, Evo. Restore the feeling. Do you echo those sentiments? Spoke to Joe at Stockport. Yeah, he was pleased as we all were with that performance. But yeah, Tim, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm walking in the Evatt Wonderland. I think, I think as I said in the last pod, I think he's the right man for the job. I was surprised that there was some coolness towards it. His win ratio's up there with the best. It's pretty much unimpeachable, I would say. And we've gone to his first interview. He speaks incredibly well. I think he understands the fan base, and he's got an indication as from past experience as to what we want. If there is a slight negative to what he actually was doing at Bolton towards the second half of his tenure was probably not exactly what we want. He was doing it at Barrow. I think I've mentioned before, I went to watch him up there when we played the friendly, and he was very Holloway-esque style football. And a little bit like Holloway after his Leicester experience. Let's hope that Evatt's had a little bit of time out. He spoke about reflecting on what was good and what was not so good in the way in which he'd managed at Bolton. And I'm expecting an invigorated and enthusiastic tenure. And so I'm really, really pleased. And, there's all the messages. He's out running at 7:15. I don't know who was exactly with him. There's some suggestion it might have been one or more of the players, maybe it was staying at the hotel. And he looks incredibly good shape, doesn't he? Compared with what we've seen in the past. Tanned, new teeth, and but also looking very, very slim. And I've got to say, he's in good shape, and hopefully he can take those fit, because if he's out running at 7:15 in the morning, people would joke, I think, about him being on the jabs, but if he's out running in the morning, he's setting an example to some of our players who clearly could take a leaf out of his book.
Well, I have read about that weight loss. I just did a bit of research into it. Ryan might be able to give us a bit more info about it. But apparently, he did pile on the pounds, I noticed, and he did make a concerted effort to lose weight by cycling and giving up the booze, in his own words, just to set the example to his players, and he has done that. And so, yeah, who better to tell us about Bolton, Ian Evatt, than Ryan? Welcome, Ryan. Welcome back to the Sea Sounders pod. I could see you smirking in the background there about the weight loss and the turkey teeth.
You've had me shaking my head several times already. It should be interesting. So
what was the reaction from Bolton first when it was announced? It was. I think it was pretty obvious appointment, wasn't it? I think it was bound to happen.
And to be honest, like I mean, if you look back on our socials, I've been guilty to making many a meme of the man in his sort of darker periods at Bolton. Some a little bit 18 plus, we'll say. I've had some fun with the. To be fair, I think we talk about his weight loss. I enjoyed the fat Evatt. He was much better for us. As soon as he started cleaning up his act, we actually went down the pan.
So kebabs and booze is the way forward. That's the lesson there, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. As long as your players are fit, it's fine. Steve Evans did it, didn't he? He's lost all the weight as well.
I was about to say. Like his was the fat jabs, though. I can't see Steve Evans riding a bike and running at 7:30 in the morning.
No, well, to be fair, Bolton fans did laugh, but I'm quite looking forward to sort of seeing him back again. It was going to happen eventually, and I was a bit worried for him that he wasn't going to get back at this level, considering sort of how much his stock had dropped with the money he spent and how wrong it did go at Bolton in the end, and he couldn't get us up. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I get the feeling he's not going to come back and play the same way that he did with Bolton, by the sounds of it. In his opening interview, he's talking about set pieces and that kind of stuff and making the most of as many chances he can get hold of, which wasn't really the way he did things. But obviously, pet ball's not trendy anymore, so maybe he's trying something different. So we'll see. We'll see. So
let's just do an in order season by season of Evo. Obviously, he's come from Barrow. Tim's saw Barrow play, and he says they played a great brand of football, got them up for the first time in 48 years. He's joined Bolton at a serious point in your history where there was bills not being paid, winding up orders, etc. So for him to get you up in that first season was a great achievement, and you had quite a poor start as well, I believe, and a great run in the second half that season.
Yeah, I think it was COVID, obviously. I think the fact the fans weren't there was really good for him. It gave him the opportunity to have time and that lack of pressure. And at the end of the day, he brought us from the doldrums of a really poor start under Keith Hill and got us out the division comfortably, which is what we wanted from it. And he was sort of bringing the good times back to Bolton. And I think for a long time we needed that, and at that point he was a saviour for us. And the saying goes, you either leave a hero or stay long enough to be the villain. And at that point he was the hero for us.
I've just read first silverware for Bolton in 30 years, EFL trophy. Was that the last time you won it against us all that time ago when you beat us in the Northern LBV final, something like that?
I mean, he tested me. Apart from like playoffs, I think so. Yeah. So he took us. It was a comfortable win over our current manager at Wembley, and at that point, everyone thought he was the best. That like Bolton fan, grown men crying at Wembley because with the glory days were coming back, and it looked like at that point we were in the playoffs as well. So yeah, it's almost sad when you look back to those days and how well things are going. And sometimes managers outstay the welcome, change too much, make some reactive decisions under pressure, which he did, and it almost all fell apart. Bringing in Stephen Crainey was one of them, I think, paying money from Wigan to bring him over. I had to laugh. Their little picture where they look like two guys who come off a 3-day bender with their Blackpool scarf. That was a belter.
They know about that. So obviously you've come back up to League One. You've had arguably successful campaigns. You steadied the ship. 2 playoff campaigns in a row. Lost to Barnsley in the semis. Next season, Barnsley again. You've got past them. You've gone to the Oxford game where you were hot favourites to beat them. I've got a mate who's an Oxford fan. He was fully expecting to lose that game. But I watched that game and Bolton seemed to just freeze on the day.
Yeah. That was the day that everyone worked out how to play against that style of play, that possession-based, high-press style football. And obviously, I think it stopped becoming so popular after that. Des Buckingham completely out-tacticked us on that day, and it was never the same since. And I think I'm travelling all the way to Wembley for the second time in 2 years and experiencing that was absolutely heartbreaking when we're very, very clear favourites. And I think that was the point where the owners kept him on out of sort of heart rather than head. And that really probably should have been the point where he should have left us, I think. And I think he would have left on much higher credit at that point as well.
Brian, I was just going to say, Ryan, a lot of Bolton fans see this very negative impression based on probably the last 6 months, don't they? But I was just having a quick look beforehand, and he left when you were 9th, and you'd had as I recall, quite a bad run of results leading up to that. So you actually had been higher in the league that season as well. But if you look back with the benefit of hindsight, was he actually doing that badly? Because you've not really hit the heights that he gave you since he left, have you?
I think there was a lot of repetitive incidents happening. Getting beaten by Wigan every single time we played him was a big one, or any team that was sort of seen as a big game. We never really beat the big teams. He was very rigid in his style of play, forcing players into these wing-back positions and trying to keep his system as it should be, no matter what players he had on the pitch. The football was getting very boring as well.
But you managed to win the biggest game of your. You managed to win 2 cup finals at Norwich, didn't you? Really, against us.
Well, yeah. But I think you played into our hands a few times there, to be fair. But honestly, like getting battered by Wigan every year, we got absolutely leathered by Huddersfield. We got some real peltings even in front of our home crowd. Battered by Stockport every time we played him, and there was just sort of these repetitive things. And obviously when Schumacher came in and we were playing 4 at the back and playing with wingers and was allowed to do things like set pieces and long goal kicks. I mean, you would lot will know after Critchley what it's like when that goes away. And that's what it was, a breath of fresh air. And he just outstayed his welcome, unfortunately. And you can look back, and I think as time goes on, we'll look back more fondly of sort of the way his attitude changed a lot as well. He was lashing out at fans, lashing out at players, that kind of stuff. And he comes with his baggage and scandal as well, which probably isn't an appropriate forum to discuss that either. But yeah, it was just more and more piling on, to be honest. It was it got really toxic in the end.
Right. So in terms of we've done the negatives. So what about the positives? What can we expect to see in terms of, like in his first interview, he's talked about playing aggressive, attacking football, so hopefully not as much tippy-tappy as we perhaps saw under yourselves. Do you think he'll stick with a similar system that he played at Bolton?
I think no. I don't think he's got the team to do that. one of our guys on the pod pointed out that it looks like he's trying to sort of move with the trends, which again makes sense. But now he's looking at playing this more direct, utilising your set pieces, your long throws, which I think will be a lot more suited to Blackpool as well. I think we'll get a different style of play completely. How long has he been away for now? Nearly, what was it, 8 months or something like that? And I think he will have time to reflect on what went so wrong. And obviously, he's not had that. He had a lot of time at Bolton to build that team, what he wanted. And he's got to work with what he's got. And I think if he is a good manager, he's got to play to the strengths there, really, and to get you. And he's in a very different position of trying to dig you out of a tough spot in the league as well. So I think no.
I think he's a how can I say? I mean, my one of my best pals is a Bolton fan, and he says to me, he's given me some of the best days watching Bolton I've ever had in my life, but he's also given me some of the worst. and like, I think he's got equally, a bit like you, a bit of love for him and a bit of hate for him in some ways, and that's how it seems. Given he's playing where he's played majority of his career with Blackpool, and he probably wanted to come when his stock was really high with Bolton when our manager job came up. I don't think he'd have turned it down if it was given the opportunity. And at that time, you might be right. If he'd have gone then, Bolton fans would have hated him for leaving, but would have remembered him fondly for what he did. But it has been tainted the last few months because it started to get embarrassing, the amount of calls locally when I'm at work. It was just like horrendous, people coming in, slaughtering him, and it's just, it wasn't good. But we've all been there, I think, at times when we maybe, like you called it, outstage your welcome, and maybe a lot of us have been there in jobs in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And you know, at points there were teams in the Championship who were looking at him, so they did see him as a good manager at the time. And you've got to move with the times. And I think a big issue what he did was, I think he made some rash decisions on buying players as well when things were a little bit tough, like throwing 1 million at Joel Randall, throwing 1 million at John McAtee, paying money for Daniel Underloo full stop. His recruitment, which has got to fall on Chris Markham as well, who was his sort of counterpart, was a big issue. And at the moment, we have Fergal Harkin, who is like our head of football operations, and Evatt was running the whole show. And I think if he would have had more support in the football side of things, I think that would have also helped him. So there is some fault on the club of the situation he got in. And I think that's why we've sort of been ripped up and completely started again, including like shipping out 10 players. So it was a mixture of things. It didn't all just fall at his feet, but obviously it's the manager who gets it in the end, isn't it? That's the way it goes.
But he was with you when you were struggling, weren't you? Financially, you were really struggling at one point, weren't you? And then suddenly you got a bit of success, and then suddenly you've got 20,000 season tickets, and money starts flowing, and interest around the town increased, didn't it? And sponsorship increased, and you renamed the stadium, and all these things like all happened all of a sudden, didn't they? And there was a big upturn, and the flow was definitely going upwards, wasn't it? And it plateaued, didn't it? And just started to die the other side. And like, look, he was in a no-win situation then, wasn't he?
I personally think once you're arguing with fans, and once the manager's starting having arguments and rows with fans, the writing's on the wall, isn't it? I don't think there's any coming back from that. I think once a fan base turns, that's it. The writing's on the wall, and it's probably best that your team and your manager part ways. But in this day and age, it's good for a 4.5-5 year tenure for a manager, and I think it's probably just a natural conclusion to his time at Bolton. But I'm just looking at his win percentage rates now. In his first season, 50%. 21-22, 46%, 22-23, 50% again. 23-24, you'd won 25, drawn 12, won 9, 54%. The season you parted ways, 42%. So it was an average of nearly 49% win rate, and that's a hell of a record at any club over an extended period of time as well. So that's to be applauded, I think, really, for Evatt, what he's done there.
Yeah, he's done a lot for us, and like I say, he brought back the fans, but me including. I was in a position where I felt like I didn't have my football club anymore, and then now we're getting 20,000 fans, and that's stayed with Schumacher as well. We'll have a bad run, and we'll still get those seats filled. Yeah, it's you've got to give him his plaudits, I suppose. But yeah, I think there's still a lot of fans who remember the last 6 months. And I still very much do, because it was we were becoming like a circus. I was on Talk Sport every other week talking about the next crazy thing that he decided to do, and it got a bit much. It got a bit, and then you start hearing all these daft stories through the grapevine about him kicking off in training, about there being too many bees on the training ground and all sorts like that. It was a mad time. It was a mad time. Yeah.
I think there is a recency bias when you part ways with a manager. I know we've been like that with Steve Bruce. Me personally, and a lot of other people, we just focus on the negatives, and we did have a good run under Steve Bruce last season. We won a hell of a lot of away games, more than we can remember in our lifetime. So there's probably that to mull over. So if you were to speak to Ian Evatt, what advice would you give him going into the Blackpool? To take the Blackpool and Bolton rivalries aside, what advice would you give him as a kind of a neutral, as a football manager, to improve his craft?
I think it's like how you're going to control that ego of yours, because he's a very, very proud man, and I think sometimes he's got to know that he's maybe in the wrong, and maybe what he's doing isn't right, and maybe to listen to the fans and other people in football. He was very, very headstrong and very, very stubborn in the way he did things, and hopefully that has changed, because it's all well and good being that kind of sort of headstrong, cocky person when things are going well, and saying things like, we're Bolton Wanderers, one of the biggest teams in the league, but when things are going badly and you're still sort of dying on that hill. I think he needs to learn from that. And I think he's got to think, what does he want to do with Blackpool? And does he want to, is his job right now to get them out of this sticky situation? Or does he want to stick with his vanity and play the way he did at Bolton, right when you're struggling at the bottom of the league with a team that he hasn't got?
Tim, you going to say something? Sorry.
No, I was actually coughing, but I think we've obviously got a lot of history with Evatt as well. I mean, you'll know when we came to your ground, we used to try and wind you up, whether we were succeeding or not, because we generally were about 2-0 down at the time, by sort of singing Ian Evatt's Tangerine, and it was interesting. A lot of people spoke about that first interview, and there was quite a lot of emotion in it, I thought. And I'm hoping that he's going to be able to harness that in a way that really gets the fan base behind him. Because I think he had the Bolton fan base behind him for quite a long time. And I think there is obviously a jaundice coming from the last 6 months. But, if John's quoted those stats there, and they are incredible stats. I know one of them's in the bottom division, but the rest of them are in the division you're still in at the moment. And I don't think Schumacher's replicated those stats. So we had the same thing with Critchley a bit, with the messing around at the back too much, and it got a bit stale. But you look at that as compared with what we've had this season, and it's we couldn't only dream of a 50% win rate. 5% win rate would do us at the moment, I think. But in all seriousness, I'm just hoping that based on what I've heard, I'm hoping he's going to do a little bit like Holloway and take the best of what he did at Bolton, and then the best of what he's seen other people do, and make something a little bit different. He spoke about Arsenal, didn't he? And I know he sort of talked about set plays. I mean, our set plays on Saturday were turgid. I mean, the first thing I would tell Evatt is get Evans off set plays completely and never let him take another. But he spoke about that and about easy wins and trying to take something from those set plays. Blackpool are probably one of the worst teams I know for converting set plays. So it'd be interesting to see what he does there. But I'm genuinely excited. I'm genuinely excited because I think he's got a great amount of experience in League One, and we actually have, in my view, when they're all fit again, quite a good squad. Whether it fit, you don't think it's going to fit his style of play, as you say. So we're going to have to do something a little bit different. It'd be interesting to see what he conjures up, because what's been dished up this season is the team's been a lesser sum of its parts rather than the greater sum of its parts. It's literally underperformed hugely when you look at who we've had available. So I'm very positive, and intend to remain so.
Might as well. You got no choice, have you? Really? Well.
Thanks for the treat.
We've got to make the best of it, haven't we? We've got to make the best of it, and we've got to get behind him.
Anyway, thanks for training him, Ryan.
Confuses me. It's quite contradictory, that stuff about set plays, because he hated them at Bolton. So tiny little red flag for you already there.
I think he's probably learned, hasn't he?
Yeah.
It's evolution, Ryan. See, he's learned that you need to take something from set plays.
Is that a pun there, Tim? Evolution.
Oh, no,
evolution. There you go.
I'm kicking myself now for not thinking of that.
Yeah. Right, Ryan. Just before you go, then, how do you think he will do under Blackpool? Do you think he'll keep us up? That's our aim now. And just finally, what a twist this is going to be on the 21st of February when we travel to the Tough Sheet. It's going to be a hell of a game, isn't it? What sort of a reaction do you think he'll get from the Bolton fans?
I'll start with, I don't think the reaction is going to be good, if I'm completely honest. I think it's a big game anyway. Why would we be clapping their manager? And I think there is still quite a few people who are going to be bitter about that. How do I think he'll do? It's a tough division, this one, in terms of it's very, very even, and at the minute nobody wants it. We could be top of the league if we would have taken a couple of chances. And I think about 5 or 6, 7 other teams could say that. And then you've got Burton and Northampton taking 6 points off us. I'm probably a little bit cynical, and I don't really believe much what he says at the moment. But that's probably me still a little bit damaged from his time with us. We will see. But I don't expect much, but that might be just because I don't want to expect much.
Good answer. Right, Ryan, thanks ever so much for your input this evening. Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
And we'll speak, no doubt, before the 21st and let battle commence. Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers.
Look forward to it. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
Cheers, mate.
Right, good insight there. I think with the Bolton fans that you hear on social media, it is a bit of... The majority seem very negative about Evo, but you do get the odd positive and biting back comment from their fan base. So I think they're a bit mixed on their opinion, aren't they?
I think you see it with lots of fan bases, though, don't you? Social media tends to be the extremes, doesn't it? And quite often people who are, have a lot to say, it can be negative, and it's not necessarily representative of the wider fan base. I'm with Tim. I think, you look at his win percentage, and it's excellent, and it does sound like he's had a lot. Well, he has had a lot of time to reflect in the last 9 months, and hopefully he'll have looked at what didn't go well and what he can do to fix that. He also said, it's not a quick fix. We're not going to go from 0 to 100. There is, I said before, we need to be patient. And any new manager will come in and say, "Oh, the players aren't fit enough," because it buys them a bit of time, doesn't it? But I think in this case, it's probably absolutely right if he does say that, because we've looked off it from the first match, haven't we? So you've got to factor that in as well, even before, as well as the injuries. There's 2 massive things there. One, 4 or 5 key players aren't going to be available for probably, well, certainly you look at Ennis and Taylor, it's a while, isn't it? and the players who are available, it's going to take potentially a little bit of time to get them up to full fitness, and then also him to try and impart his style of play as well. So I think we've really just got to bear with him, whatever happens in the next couple of months, until he can start to say, right, this is going to be my team now, because he's going to just pretty much pick. He's got to pick just about who's available. I've not heard an update on Albie Morgan, but I don't know if he's going to be back or not.
Not good.
Is it not? Right. So there you go. You look at the midfield, it's going to be really tough, isn't it? And just sort of Ash Fletcher up front. So it's a case of just getting through the next few sort of games and trying to pick up enough points to get us out of it first and foremost, before he can then start to build from there. So we really do need to be patient over these next sort of couple of months.
I'm gobsmacked by all the negativity from the Bolton fans. I'm just having a quick.
There's the graphic, Tim. I'll just make it a bit bigger so you can see it.
His average points over his tenure were 1.73, and he's statistically the third most successful manager in the history.
It's Tim. You have to wage that against what the expectation was. Right, so if the expectation is to go up, forget the Division 2 year, when they were in Division 1, right, their expectation was that they would at least get into the playoffs and then get up, right, and they didn't. His win percentage on the face of it is really, really good. Did it meet expectation at the end? No. So when they got done by Oxford, which was a kick in the what's-its for them, because they absolutely did not turn up in that game, right? That then the next season, unless they were flying away with it, he was going to be, or very, very close. He was always going to be up against it, and he was up against it. But
the reality is, it was down to one game, and if he'd won that game and got them into the Championship, I'm sure they'll have had a completely different view of it. And we all know, listen, we're statistically excellent in playoffs, as we know, but one game can, you can turn up or you don't turn up, and it's not necessarily always down to the manager. Quite often it's just on the day, it's down to the players. So. Listen, all I can, he is statistically their third best manager ever, and yet they seem to have this very negative view of him, which surprises me. That's all. It just, I think we can look back at. I like to think that we can look back at Critchley, and whilst we, it ended on a bit of a sour note, he got us up, and we finished 9th the season before we sacked him. So you look back at his tenure now compared with where we're at, and you think, Jesus, we would kill for that at the moment, wouldn't we? So I don't think we would slaughter Critchley the way that they slaughter Evatt, and whether it's
I'm not so sure. I think you're looking at it from a very balanced point of view. If you ask the vast majority of this fan base, I think they remember more Critchley Mark II than Critchley Mark I. Critchley Mark I, let's not forget, we're all on the same page. All of us, from the owner, manager, fans, everyone. He told us it was a project. We believed him, and it was there. He then quit, and it was never the same. It was never, ever, ever the same. And second time when he came back, I mean, it was like going to the dentist, wasn't it? Every bloody game. I mean, I remember winning a game 2-0, and we were sitting there talking about Christmas bloody presents, me, Sharpie, and Colin. We won the game 2-0. It was boring as sin, and that's what they went through with Ever, really. And it won't be the same with us. I can't.
In the moment, Chrissy, I get that, but I think maybe it's because we're incredibly poor at the moment and where we're at. But I look back at it and think, listen, it wasn't great. It wasn't particularly entertaining. We didn't enjoy it, and we were quite critical on the podcast about it. But what I'm saying is, with the benefit of hindsight, when you take a step back from that, I don't think we're quite as critical as Critchley as they are of Evatt, and if anything, Evatt, I think, had more success for them overall than Critchley had for us. So albeit they didn't get into the Championship, which obviously Critchley did do for us, but they won at Wembley. There was two playoff runs. I just think overall, I just find it, I struggle with how negative they are about him. And listen, we've all watched a lot of boring football over our time as football fans, and we don't necessarily like that. But I just think I'm surprised after 8 months since he left that they're still as negative as they are. That's the point.
That's fair.
So let's talk about the future then. Initially, Pep would struggle getting a tune out of this squad in its injured state, in its fitness or lack of state. He's got a hell of a job on his hands, hasn't he, to get us to January within spitting distance of the relegation spot. So that's my aim for me. I will be ecstatic if we get to January and we're not more than 3 points away from the bottom of the table. And I think that's how bad it is at the moment.
I'd agree. I know I've spoken about, so I'll have a quiet 5 minutes in a second. But actually, somebody mentioned to me just before the podcast started, in some respects, it might be ideal that he comes in at this moment in time because he's going to be able to sort the wheat from the chaff before January, isn't he? Where if it was a bit later, or if it's in the transfer window, you don't know what you've got and you don't know what you want to keep and who can work with the systems you want to. But he has got a little bit of time to play with here. And hopefully if there are acquisitions required in January, something might be made available for him. I'd like to think maybe even he's built that into his decision to come to us. I don't know that he does get some funds in January. But, I mentioned Evans on set plays. I mean, things like that, he's going to get a chance to weed out, isn't he, before he has to start making some decisions about recruitment. So I think he's got a free run for a couple of months, and I'd like to think that we're going to see a little bit of new manager bounce. I'll let other people speak.
Hopefully we'll see that they look like they're being given a bit more direction, because I think that's something that looks like they haven't had. Whether they have or not, I don't know. But they've looked, we've talked about them looking like strangers a lot this season, and hopefully it will look like, even with the injuries and trying to get them fit or fitter, we will at least have a plan, which I think will make a difference. I'm not going to say it can't be any worse because the Mick McCarthy quote will come out, but I'm hopeful that that will start to happen quite quickly. Even if the results, don't necessarily come with that straight away.
So how do we think he's going to set up then? Obviously, he favours the modern 4-2-3-1 or the wing-back system. Have we got the personnel to play that? Arguably not. Or will he try and force the existing squad into that setup? Maybe even blood a few of the youngsters.
That's what Dobbie tried to play Saturday, wasn't it? He tried to play 4-2-3-1, and we've got two midfield players now really fit. So whoever plays in the third midfield place, whether they try and shoehorn a winger in there as he did Banks towards the end, and trying to shoehorn a winger into the 10 or something like that, I don't know. But we've got to do something. I mean, there's no natural fit other than putting Upton in there, and it's a big ask to ask Upton to play 90 minutes for sure. Like, yeah, okay, in the Virtue Cup games, but and maybe 20 minutes or whatever off the bench. But to ask him to do that would be really, really tough. And so he's got to find a way of playing from the players he's got available first. That's what he's got to do, and then he's got to work from there. I mean, they're just saying about Honeyman there. Sorry, Honeyman was due to be starting training this week, but I can't see him being fit for Saturday. No chance. right? Might go on the bench maybe for the last 15, 20 minutes, but he would no chance he's going to be fit to start Saturday. So we just have to see. He's got a really tough job. He's got to organise. He's got to find a way of playing. If Fletcher's going to make runs behind, then he's got to have a guy that someone has to be in charge of getting him that ball early and getting him into the right areas. And they've got to work on that on the training ground, haven't they? They're like Fletcher makes a lot of runs, you know. He makes a lot of runs and they just don't find him. They're not even looking half the time. They look scared to make a mistake.
Gracie, why
Really
wouldn't you play Upton to make sure that we've got the three in the middle? I don't get it.
Well, no, look. I'm not saying he's not
19.
I'm not saying he's not good enough, Tim. What I'm saying is he's young. It's a big ask. That's all I'm saying. He might well do. He might well do. But you know, this is a guy trying to make his way, and at the end of the day, he'll see in training, and if he rocks up well in training, then he might well do that.
We've got Peterborough, haven't we? And then we've got the cup game after that. Unless I don't think we've got an away game in between. We've got a cup game after that. So he's actually, you know, whatever. If we get anything at Peterborough, great. But then he's got the cup game. And I think that's an opportunity, isn't it?
I think we've got to go to Tranmere midweek next week. Or we've got to go to Tranmere in the Virtue, I think.
All right, so he's got that as well. So he's got a couple of games there, which, let's be honest, don't really matter. I'm not saying we don't want to win the FA Cup and have a bit of a run, but in the greatest scheme of things, they don't really matter. So once he gets past Saturday, he's got a couple of games there that he can try and put people in a few different positions.
I'm wrong, Tim. It's the 11th of November that we play at Tranmere. So it's Saturday.
Yeah, we've got one then, haven't we? We've got the cup game, and at the end of the day, for me, that is him trying to get his squad, his starting 11 in the shape of the start 11 right for what then comes in the rest of November. So, but listen, I think he's been watching us. I'm sure he's been watching us, whether remotely or actually at the matches. And I think he'll, you know, because I think he's been in the frame for a little while. He's done his homework. You know, I've heard a few rumours that, you know, he interviewed very, very well, and let's hope that he's going to bring some fresh ideas, a little bit like his mentor Holloway did all way back when, and get the mindset right. The mindset of our players, for me, is by far and away the most important thing, because I think they're at the rock bottom at the moment, and I think they're not as bad as the position in the league suggests. And I think fitness is a big thing. And I think looking at him, he's going to be on those runs, and he's going to be involved, and he's going to, you know, make sure that they do the bit. I think main thing is mindset. Mindset needs to be right.
Great to see him actually on the training ground this morning.
Yeah. Exactly.
So let's talk about the Steves. Let's talk about the Steves. Stephen Crainey, Steve. There's Banksy. He's still there. There was rumours that Gilks was going to come back as well, and yeah, it was an odd one, that, wasn't it? Do you think we should have a bit of a clear out? Obviously, Dobbie's still here as well, but you've got to be wondering what's Dobbie going to be doing.
Yeah, well, there was that picture of the Range Rover, and I couldn't make out who the person was in the passenger seat, but a lot of people were claiming that was Matt Gilks, weren't they? And so I'm going to say I was quite surprised when it was announced that him and Crainey were coming in, but Gilks he wasn't. So you know, it is what it is at the moment, and I think I don't think Dobbie's going anywhere unless he decides to. So I think he'll be staying. I think you know, the jury maybe is a little bit out on whether the goalkeeping side of things is as good as it could be. Although equally, I think both our goalkeepers have acquitted themselves quite well in recent weeks, which is you know, it's far better than it was in pre-season and at the beginning of the actual season when there were faux pas all over the place. So. I was impressed at Stockport, and I was reasonably impressed on Saturday as well with the way that our keepers acquitted themselves.
Nick, let's look ahead to potential recruitment. I did read that Evo has a very good relationship with the likes of Ricardo Santos, George Thomason, struggling at Wrexham, Dion Shaw's not scored in 38 appearances, ex-Blackpool as well. Mm-hmm. It'd be nice to see players of those ilk come to Blackpool in the January window. But
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But I think we've also got to think about the current squad, and if they're all fit, who might, they're on decent money, quite a lot of them, aren't they, in quite long contracts. So it's not necessarily as easy as just, right, I want to bring 5 in, because you'd have to look at who might be going and how easy it might be for that to happen. I think we're going to just have to see where we're at with injuries. I'm sure he'll over the next, however many games up until January, start to form an opinion. It'll be interesting to see what it means for some players once he knows what system he's going to play, because we employ managers, don't we? And we kind of get to a point where you can go, right, that's their team now. They've had a couple of transfer windows, and then we sack them. And the next guy comes and it's a different system. Bruce has done it with wingers, and he wants to do 4-4-2. Obviously, Evo won't be doing that. So it might be that 1 or 2, naturally, once everyone's fit, aren't involved. But equally, it could also mean players who, haven't performed this season get to flourish under Ian Evatt. You look at, Taylor. Obviously, he's just had that bad injury, but it hadn't gone particularly well for him prior to that. Yet we know he can score goals in this division. He's hit double figures for Wigan last season. So, and again with Ennis, I think, if we're giving them chances, we know that they can score goals. So it's going to be interesting to see when we get to January who we've got fit and available and what he might want to do. But I don't necessarily, because it's not the best time to be signing players, January, is it? And like I say, we'd have to shift a few out. So it will be interesting to see, what's going to happen. Because like Tim says, it is a pretty decent squad, and it should be performing better than we have been. So yeah,
I mean, Tim, that's a real. I think we forget how good the squad is. And if they're all fit, and if they're all firing, and they're properly fit and they're conditioned, we should be a real force in this division. And I know it's really, especially after Wycombe on Saturday, you've got your blinkers on, the negativity blinkers, and you can just look downwards and bleakness. But with Evo coming in, it's going to be a breath of fresh air, and surely he can get a tune out of this squad.
Well, I think between now and December, if I'm putting a positive hat on, he's going to get a new player back every week. That's going to be like a new signing to him, isn't it? So I think maybe Honeyman's near the start of the comeback trail. He might be the first, and then hopefully come November, December, we might see Ennis, we might see Hubby, and then and it's going to hopefully going to keep going like that, because it has been. Listen, putting aside everything else, it's been an incredibly unfortunate set of injuries, hasn't it? And whether they're down to fitness levels or whether it's just bad luck, jury's out for me. Some of these I don't think are down to fitness. I think they are what they are. And some of our fitter players, what I'd call our fitter players, have got injured. Your Ennis's, I think Morgan, to be fair, is a reasonably fit player. So they aren't injury related, and we can be. You can end up tarnishing every injury with the same brush, can't you? It's all down to poor fitness levels. I don't think it is. I just think some of it is bad luck, but some of it is, as a squad, we are ridiculously unfit. We've got players like Bloxham and even Ashworth on Saturday, who went off. He was knackered. These young lads should not be getting knackered in 90 minutes.
He's barely played, though, to be fair, has he, Tim?
I know we say this, but you should still be fit enough to play 90 minutes.
Well, he was blowing on 80.
He was good. Listen, he had a great game. But what I'm saying is, every player should be fit. And Bloxham, for whatever reason, and some of it may have to stay off here. He can't seem to get past 60 minutes, and he's 21, 22 years old. It's mental. So hopefully, that's going to be looked at, because they should be. And Evo said it, didn't he? He said he wants us. He wants us to be I forgot the exact words he used, but it was along the lines of, he wants us to come off the park having worked harder than the opposition and shown more effort and desire than the opposition in every single game we play. And I think that's, I'm not picking out any particular players. That's what we want to see as fans, isn't it? We want to see that Blackpool team sweat for every result. Evatt was never the best player in the world, but he made the best of his attributes, I think, as a player. I think he would probably say, had it, another player with his skill set as a footballer would have, been in the Division 1 or maybe scraped into the Championship. But he made himself into a Premiership player and an upper Championship player by effort and desire, and by his ability to focus, just like a lot of the others did. And they were inspired. They were inspired by a manager and a group who achieved collectively far, far more than they'd ever achieved individually. And I think he's potentially got the ability to do that with some of our players. But he has to start with fitness. They've got to be fitter than they are, and they're not. Listen, it's obvious. You just watch every game. We didn't win on Saturday because we weren't fit enough.
So we've got Evo coming back. Go on, Andy. Go on.
You've got to be. Surely as a player, you want to be the best that you ever can be. Surely. So you've got to do the work that needs that. Now, all I'll tell you is what's told to me, and what's told to me is that the players are sitting there astounded on what was going on on the training ground under the Bruce regime. They're astounded. No matter what Dobbie wants to come out and say, that's coming from players. They're astounded by how bad it was, how little organisation was, how little concentration there was on set plays. That's coming from players.
Well, it was there on the pitch in front of us, Andy. We don't score from set plays. Yeah. Look how many set plays. Look how many we conceded.
The players that Evo is just by he says he's a technical coach, eye for detail and things like that. Like, if that's the case, he can't help but improve this group. I'm not wholly in the camp of, I think this squad's super brilliant. I don't. I think the jury's out on quite a lot of these players, to be honest. Like, some of them look really good, but like we've got shed loads of injuries.
But Andy, from what you've just said, that's an absolute shambles on the training pitch. So it's bound to have a negative effect on them. So individually, they may individually be very good players, but as a team, they're bad, and as a squad of players. But surely,
Bruce and Agnew, the other coaches, it doesn't matter what you say, whether they want to jump up and down and whatever else, but they've got to preserve their own jobs, haven't they? And like, they might challenge Bruce or challenge Agnew, but they were the two who led what went on in that training ground. Let's be fair. The manager, the buck stops were the manager and his assistant. End of. And as a coach, you're doing what the manager is telling you to do, and you're coaching to a game plan that he would coach. But it's not up to. It wouldn't be up to Dobbie as a coach to say, right, lads, we're going to stay out and come back this afternoon for another 2 hours. That would be down to the manager and assistant manager. And we're going to do set plays for 2 hours this afternoon, or whatever it would be. That has to come from the top, and Evo has to lead that. And hopefully he's seen what we're seeing, and he will.
I think it's right, Andy. I think the under-18s were doing double sessions, weren't they, from what I heard? And the first team weren't. Which, bearing in mind how the first team were performing, you would think that some consideration might be given to stepping up whether it's fitness or whether it's working on set plays or working on your corners, your free kicks, whatever we're talking about. You think there'll be something extra going on to try and improve things, but it doesn't seem, from the little tidbits you hear, it doesn't seem that was actually happening. Where Blinkhorn, I think, with the younger ones, was working them hard.
The suggestion was that the youth team worked harder than the first team in training, which is shocking, absolutely shocking. And look, that's in the past now. Let's look forward. Let's look forward, and let's just hope that we all can get behind Evatt. That there's no stone left unturned by him to get us playing better and getting players fit and getting on the pitch and getting 3 points and get us just going forward as a club, as a fan base, getting behind, getting the North rocking again, getting everybody back on one page, because that's where we have to do. And the club need to have a serious look at themselves as well, because they need to be back on one page as well. We need to hear from the likes of Julian Winter and Downs and people like and the owner, and in a positive way, and what they're doing to increase our reach out to the community and our Laps fans, and let's make a real big effort to getting behind Evatt and see if we can dig ourselves out of this mess that we're in.
Cardiff should be targeted as a game. I think somebody said in the chat they've got the North open again, because they weren't even going to open the North, were they, for the FA Cup game, which just opened the West. Which
they released that late this afternoon.
Yeah, so they're doing that, but I'd like to see them. Frustrating, I'm not going to be at Cardiff, but I'd like to see them really push an initiative up for the Cardiff game, whether it's they make it a kid game, or whether they bring somebody along and it's whatever. Just try and get the place as full as it can be and as noisy as it can be, and give Evatt and whatever team he puts out all the support they could possibly want.
The season ticket holder buys a ticket for a mate, it's a £5.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's £1 a kid on top. Right. That's let's sort it out. Let's sort out the positivity. Like, absolutely 100%, Tim. Let's do it.
I've bought a ticket for the cup game right behind the dugout. So that's going to be Evo's first home game. It's a good shout. So I had a quick look on the seat planner before. Get on it, people. You can get right behind Evo Cranes. It'll just be like the old days. Comment there from my class. Just going back about what Andy was talking about. It's okay having a top Man United ex-player as manager, but this is Blackpool, and Evo has lived and breathed it all at the seaside. And I think it's just going to be great to see Evo leading the team out with Stephen Crainey there, Dobbs, for us to kind of relive those happy days. And I just think it's a great appointment in that regard. Just it'll get absolutely everybody on side from the off. It won't be like Appleton or Mad Mick or with Bruce, Nick. I think the general consensus is that we're all looking forward to seeing Blackpool under Evo, and it's a great positive step.
Obviously we look where we are now. It's a long way off, isn't it? And I'm not saying the season's a write-off. There's a lot of points to play for, so we will see what happens. But next season perhaps there will be nothing better, would there, than if he could get us promoted. A player who was a key part of the most successful team we've had in our lifetime. It would be that extra special, wouldn't it? So we'll have that one in the bank for next season. We'll get to mid-table and then go from there.
So I think we're 15 points off the playoffs, aren't we? Is it a ridiculous dream? 15 points off the playoffs, and we're on the 21st of October. Who thought this would have happened?
I think the thing is, if we were talking a fit squad, then you'd go, yeah, maybe. But realistically, we're getting, it's probably going to be Christmas before everybody's back, if not slightly after. So being realistic, I think that is a massive ask. I think so. You never know, and if any club can do it and get on a roll, it's Blackpool, isn't it? But I think for the here and now, let's just get through the next few games, see some incremental improvements, and take it from there.
So round the room then, just before we go, we're on an hour. Where do you think we're going to finish under Ian Evatt? Nick, you can start the ball rolling.
I just said mid-table, didn't I? So 12th, 13th.
Tim?
I was about to say 13th.
Grice Reaper?
I hope anywhere above the relegation zone, but 15th if I was given a... I think these guys' work cut out at the start, to be honest.
Just laughing at that comment. No one whatsoever saw this decline at the start of the season apart from the Grice Reaper. That's right.
You lot on the pre-season pod were saying, "Go on, you got positive," and I wasn't. And then you talked me into forecasting a win, and there we are, get smashed. And like, oh my days, here we go.
Should have listened to the Grice Reaper.
Look, we have to get behind this fella. We have to get behind Evo, and we have to just let's just go for it and see where it takes us.
Well said.
I think Big Dog sorts it out there. If we finish 17th and an EFL trophy win, there you go. You'd take that for this season, given the circumstance we've been in with Bruce. But I can't think anything of Bruce for the mess that he's left behind. It's shocking.
Yeah. Excuse the pun, Big Dog, but I think we would bite your hand off for that mid-table and EFL trophy win for the foul. Right, I think we've done enough there, gents. We're on an hour, so we'll say adieu for the evening. And actually looking forward to the Peterborough game on Saturday now. Probably a bit too far for everyone to go. Is anyone going? Is everyone mad enough to go, Tim? You're firing up the EV.
Firing up the EV. Get yourself down the A1. I'm tempted.
I've got to topically work in Bolton on Saturday.
Right, everybody. Thanks for joining us in the comments. As ever, you make the show tons better, and we will see you after the Peterborough game, no doubt. And thanks for do like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Give us a star rating on audio podcasts, Spotify and the like. And all remains to be said is thanks for watching, everybody, and up the pool. And come on, Evo!
He's been involved in 2. Can he make 3? Not on this occasion. Well taken by Walsh. Davis is on the far side. Ainscough coming square. That's the ball. That's a good try!